the untold. Take a deep breath, take the higher road. It's what they always say, as if they know the way. They won't take it from me. But don't ever doubt yourself, 'cause life ain't just a dream. You make your own, so kick and scream. The people will act with a never-ending force. You never had the chance, so what you waiting for? The day has come, my friend, 'cause this is war. It's time and this is war.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
This week is Parashah 4, which begins with Genesis 18:1. You'll find that on page 16 of your complete Jewish Bible. Adonai appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre as they sat at the entrance of the tent during the heat of the day. He raised his eyes and looked, and there in front of him stood 3 men. On seeing them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, prostrated himself on the ground, and said, "My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, please don't leave your servant. Please let me send for some water so that you can wash your feet, then rest under the tree. And I will bring a piece of bread. Now that you have come to your servant, refresh yourselves before going on." "Very well," they replied, "do what you have said."
Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, "Quickly, 3 measures of the best flour, knead it and make cakes." Abraham ran to the herd, took a good tender calf and gave it to the servant, who hurried to prepare it. Then he took curds, milk, and the calf which he had prepared, and set it all before the men. And he stood by them under the tree as they ate. They said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" And he said, "There in the tent." He said, "I will return to you around this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." And Sarah heard him from the entrance of the tent behind him. And Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself, thinking, "I am old, and this is my Lord. And so, my Lord, am I to have pleasure again?" Adonai said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and ask, 'Am I really going to bear a child when I am so old?' Is anything too hard for Adonai? At the time set for it, at this season next year, I will return to you, and Sarah will have a son." And Sarah denied it, saying, I didn't either laugh, because she was afraid. He said, "No, not so. You did laugh."
The men set out from there and looked over toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to see them on their way. Adonai said, "Should I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? Inasmuch as Abraham is sure to become a great and strong nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed by him. For I have made myself known to him, so that he will give orders to his children and to his household after him, to keep the way of Adonai, and do what is right and just, so that Adonai may bring about for Abraham what he has promised him."
Adonai said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin so serious, that I will now go down and see whether their deeds warrant the outcry. that has reached me. If not, I will know." The men turned away from there and went toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before Adonai. Abraham approached and said, "Will you actually sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Maybe there are 50 righteous people in the city. Will you actually sweep the place away and not forgive it for the sake of the 50 righteous who are there? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous along with the wicked, so that the righteous and the wicked are treated alike. Far be it from you. Shouldn't the judge of all the earth do what is just?" And Adonai said, "If I find in Sodom 50 who are righteous, then I will forgive the whole place for their sake."
Abraham answered, "Hear now, I, who am but dust and ashes, have taken it upon myself to speak to Adonai. What if there are 5 less than 50 righteous?" He said, "I won't destroy it if I find 45 there."
He spoke to him yet again. "What if 40 are found there?" he said. "For the sake of the 40, I won't do it."
He said, "I hope Adonai won't be angry if I speak. What if 30 are found there?" He said, "I won't do it if I find 30 there."
He said, "Here now, I've taken it upon myself to speak to Adonai. What if 20 are found there?" And he said, "For the sake of the 20, I won't destroy it."
He said, "I hope Adonai won't be angry if I speak just one more time. What if 10 are found there?" He said, "For the sake of the 10, I won't destroy it." Adonai went on his way as soon as he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place.
The 2 angels came to Sodom that evening when Lot was sitting at the gate of Sodom. Lot saw them, got up to greet them, and prostrated himself on the ground. He said, "Here now, my lords, please come over to your servant's tent. Spend the night, wash your feet, get up early, and go on your way." "No," they answered, "we'll stay in the square." But he kept pressuring them, so they went home with him. And he made them a meal, baking matzah for their supper, which they ate.
But before they could go to bed, the men of the city surrounded the house, young and old, everyone from every neighborhood of Sodom. They called Lot and said to him, "Where are the men who came to stay with you tonight? Bring them out to us. We want to have sex with them." Lot went out to them and stood in the doorway, closing the door behind him, and said, "Please, my brothers, don't do such a wicked thing. Look here, I have 2 daughters who are virgins. Please, let me bring them out to you, so you can do with them what seems good to you. But don't do anything to these men, since they are guests in my house." "Stand back," they replied. "This guy came to live here, and now he's decided to play judge. For that will deal worse with you than with them." Then they crowded in on Lot in order to get close enough to break down the door. But the men inside reached out their hands, brought Lot into the house to them, and shut the door. Then they struck the men at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they couldn't find the doorway.
The men said to Lot, "Do you have any people here besides yourself? Whomever you have in the city, son-in-law, your sons, your daughters, bring them out of this place, because we are going to destroy it. Adonai has become aware of the great outcry against them, and Adonai has sent us to destroy it." And Lot went out and spoke with his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, "Get up and leave this place, because Adonai is going to destroy the city." But his sons-in-law didn't take him seriously.
When morning came, the angels told Lot to hurry. "Get up," they said, "and take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here. Otherwise you will be swept away in the punishment of the city." But he dallied, so that the men took hold of his hand, his wife's hand, and the hands of his 2 daughters. Adonai was being merciful to him, and led them, leaving them outside the city. When they had brought them out, he said, "Flee for your life. Don't look behind you, and don't stop anywhere in the plain, but escape to the hills. Otherwise you will be swept away." Lot said to them, "Please, no, my lord. Here your servant has already found favor in your sight, and you have shown me even greater mercy by saving my life. But I can't escape to the hills, because I'm afraid the disaster will overtake me and I will die. Look, there's a town nearby to flee to, and it's a small one. Please let me escape there. Isn't it just a small one? And that way I will stay alive."
He replied, "All right, I agree to what you have asked. I won't overthrow the city of which you have spoken. Hurry and escape to that place, because I can't do anything until you arrive there." For this reason, the city was named to Zoar, which means small.
By the time Lot had come to Zoar, the sun had risen over the land. Then Adonai caused sulfur and fire to rage down upon Sodom and Gomorrah from Adonai out of the sky. He overthrew those cities, the entire plain, all the inhabitants of the cities, and everything growing in the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a column of salt.
Abraham got up early in the morning and went to the place where he had stood before Adonai. He looked out toward Sodom and Gomorrah, scanning the entire plain. There before him the smoke was rising from the land like smoke from a furnace. But when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham and sent Lot out, away from the destruction, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot lived.
Lot went up from Zoar and lived in the hills with his 2 daughters, because he was afraid to stay in Zoar. He and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. The firstborn said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there isn't a man on earth to come into us in the manner customary in the world. Come, let's have our father drink wine. Then we'll sleep with him, and that way we'll enable our father to have descendants."
So they plied their father with wine that night, and the older one went in and slept with her father. He didn't know when he lay down or when she got up. The following day the older said to the younger, "Here, I slept last night with my father. Let's make him drink wine again tonight, and you go in and sleep with him. And that way you'll enable our father to have descendants." They plied their father with wine that night also, and the younger one got up and slept with him, and he didn't know when she lay down or when she got up. Thus both the daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father.
The older one gave birth to a son and called him Moab. He is the ancestor of Moab to this day. The younger also gave birth to a son, and she called him Ben-Ammi. He is the ancestor of the people of Ammon to this day.
Abraham traveled from there toward the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. While living as an alien in Gerar, Abraham was saying of Sarah his wife, "She's my sister." So the Abimelech king of Gerar sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, "You are about to die because the woman you have taken, since she's someone else's wife." Now Abimelech had not come near her, so he said, "Lord, will you kill even an upright nation? Didn't he himself say to me, 'She is my sister'? And even she herself said, 'He is my brother.' In doing this, my heart has been pure and my hands innocent." God said to him in a dream, "Yes, I know that in doing this your heart has been pure, and I too have kept you from sinning against me. This is why I didn't let you touch her. Therefore, return the man's wife to him now. He is a prophet, and he will pray for you, so that you will live. But if you don't return her, know that you will certainly die, you and all who belong to you."
Abimelech got up early in the morning, called all his servants, and told them these things. And the men became very afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, "What have you done to us? How have I sinned against you to cause you to bring on me and my kingdom a great sin? You have done things to me that are just not done." Abimelech went on asking Abraham, "Whatever could have caused you to do such a thing?" Abraham replied, "It was because I thought there could not possibly be any fear of God in this place, so they will kill me in order to get my wife. But she actually is also my sister, the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and so she became my wife. When God had me leave my father's house, I told her, 'Do me this favor. Wherever we go, say about me, he is my brother.'"
Abimelech took sheep, cattle, and male and female slaves and gave them to Abraham, and he returned to him Sarah his wife. Then Abimelech said, "Look, my country lies before you. Live where you like." To Sarah he said, "Here, I have given you your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. That will allay the suspicions of everyone who is with you. Before everyone you are cleared." Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and slave girls, so that they could have children. For Adonai had made every woman in Abimelech's household infertile on account of Sarah, Abraham's wife.
Adonai remembered Sarah, as he had said, and Adonai did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the very time God had said to him. Abraham called his son, born to him, whom Sarah bore to him, Isaac. Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had ordered him to do.
Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac, meaning laughter, was born to him. And Sarah said, "God has given me good reason to laugh. Now everyone who hears about it will laugh with me." And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Nevertheless, I have borne him a son in his old age."
The child grew and was weaned, and Abraham gave a great banquet on the day that Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom Hagar had borne to Abraham, making fun of Isaac. So Sarah said to Abraham, "Throw this slave girl out and her son. I will not have this slave girl's son as your heir along with my son Isaac."
Abraham became very distressed over this matter of his son. But God said to Abraham, "Don't be distressed because of the boy and your slave girl. Listen to everything Sarah says to you, because it is your descendants through Isaac who will be counted. But I will also make a nation from the son of the slave girl, since he is descended from you."
Abraham got up early in the morning, took bread and a skin of water, and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, and the child. Then he sent her away. After leaving, she wandered in the desert around Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she left the child under a bush and went and sat down, looking the other way, about a bow shot distant from them, because she said, "I can't bear to watch my child die." So she sat there looking the other way, crying out and weeping. God heard the boy's voice, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What's wrong with you, Hagar? Don't be afraid, because God has heard the voice of the boy in his present situation. Get up, lift the boy up, and hold him tightly in your hand, because I'm going to make him a great nation." And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went, filled the skin with water, and gave the boy water to drink.
God was with the boy, and he grew. He lived in the desert and became an archer. He lived in the Paran desert, and his mother chose a wife for him from the land of Egypt.
At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, spoke to Abraham. They said, "God is with you in everything you do. Therefore, swear to me here by God that you will never deal falsely with me, or with my son or grandson, but according to the kindness with which I have treated you. You will treat me in the land in which you have lived as a foreigner." Abraham said, "I swear it."
Now Abraham had complained to Abimelech about a well which Abimelech's servants had seized. Abimelech answered, "I don't know who has done this. You didn't tell me, and I heard about it only today." And Abraham took sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant. Abraham put 7 female lambs from the flock by themselves. Abimelech asked Abraham, "What is the meaning of these 7 female lambs that you have put by themselves?" And he answered, "You are to accept these 7 female lambs from me as a witness that I dug this well. This is why that place is called Beersheba, well of 7, well of an oath, because they both swore an oath there." When they made the covenant of Beersheba, Abimelech departed with Phicol, the commander of his army, and returned to the land of the Philistine. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called on the name of Adonai, the everlasting God. Abraham lived for a long time as a foreigner in the land of the Philistine.
After these things, God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham?" And he answered, "Here I am." He said, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah. There you're to offer him as a burnt offering on a mountain that I will point out to you."
Abraham got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, together with Isaac his son. He cut the wood for the burnt offering, departed, and went toward the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham raised his eyes and saw the place in the distance. And Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go there, worship, and return to you." And Abraham took the wood and the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son. Then he took in his hand the fire and the knife, and they both went together.
Isaac spoke to Abraham his father. "My father?" He answered. "Here I am, son." He said, "I see the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb for a burnt offering?" Abraham replied, "God will provide himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son." And they both went on together.
They came to the place God had told him about, and Abraham built the altar there, set the wood in order bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar on the wood. Then Abraham put out his hand and took the knife to kill his son.
But the angel of Adonai called to him out of heaven, Abraham, Abraham. He answered, Here I am. He said, Don't you lay your hand on the boy. Don't do anything to him. For now I know that you are a man who fears God, because you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Abraham raised his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in the bushes by its horns. Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering in place of his son. Abraham called the place Adonai Yereh. Adonai will see to it. Adonai provides. As it is said to this day, on the mountain Adonai is seen.
The angel of Adonai called to Abraham a second time out of heaven, and he said, I have sworn by myself, says Adonai, that because you have done this, because you haven't withheld your son, your only son, I will most certainly bless you, and I will most certainly increase your descendants to as many as there are stars in the sky or grains of sand on seashore. Your descendants will possess the cities of their enemies, and by your descendants all the nations of the earth will be blessed, because you obeyed my order.
So Abraham returned to his young men. They got up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham settled in Beersheba.
Afterwards, Abraham was told, Milcah too has borne children to your brother Nahor. Utz his firstborn Buz, his brother Kemuel, the father of Aram, Keset, Hatzol, Fildash, Sidlaf, and Budal. Budal fathered Ribkah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nachor, Abraham's brother. His concubine, whose name was Remulah, bore children also, Tebach, Gashkem, Tashka, and Manakah.
And then we have 2 Kings 4, verse 1 through 37. You find that on page 403. The wife of one of the guild prophets complained to Elijah. Your servant, my husband, died, she said, and you know that he feared Adonai. Now a creditor has come to take my 2 children as his slaves. Elijah asked her, what should I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house? She answered, your servant has nothing in the house but a flask of oil. Then he said, go and borrow containers from all your neighbors, empty containers, and don't borrow just a few. Then go in, shut the door, with you and your sons inside, and pour oil into all those containers. As they are filled, put them aside. So she left him and shut the door on herself and her sons. They brought the containers while she poured. When the containers were full, she said to her son, bring me another container. But he answered, there isn't another container. Then the oil stopped flowing. She came and told the man of God, and he said, go sell the oil and pay your debt. Then you and your sons can live on what's left.
One day Elijah visited Shunammite, a well-to-do woman living there, pressed him to stay and eat a meal. After this, whenever he came through, he stopped there for a meal. She said to her husband, I can see that this is the holy man of God who keeps stopping at our place. Please, let's build him a little room on the roof. We'll put a bed and a table in it for him, and a stool and a candlestick. Then whenever he comes to visit us, he can stay there.
One day Elijah came to visit there, and he went into the upper room to lie down. He said to Gerachi, his servant, "Call this Shumanite." He called her, and when she arrived, said to him, "Tell her this. You have shown us so much hospitality. What can I do to show my appreciation? Do you want me to say anything to the king for you, or to the commander of the army?" She answered, "I'm happy living as I do among my own people." He said, "What then is to be done for her?" Gehazi answered, "There's one thing. She doesn't have a son, and her husband is old." Elijah said, "Call her." After he called her, she stood in the doorway. He said, "Next year when the season comes around, you will be holding a son." "No, my lord," she answered. "Man of God, don't lie to your servant." But the woman conceived and gave birth to a son the following year when the season came around, just as Elijah had said to her.
When the child was old enough, he went out one day to be with his father, who was with the reapers. Suddenly he cried out to his father, my head, it hurts." He said to his servant, "Carry him back to his mother." When he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he lay on her lap until noon, and then he died. She went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, shut the door on him, and went out. She called to her husband and said, "Please send me one of the servants with a donkey. I must get to the man of God as fast as I can. I'll come straight back." And he asked, "Why are you going to him today?" "It isn't Rosh Chodesh, and it isn't Shabbat," she said, "so it's all right." Then she saddled the donkey and ordered her servant, "Drive as fast as you can. Don't slow down for me unless I say so."
She set out and came to the man of God on Mount Carmel. When the man of God saw her in the distance, he said to Gehazi, his servant, "Look, here comes the Shunammite. Run now to meet her and ask her, 'Is everything all right with you, with your husband, with the child?'" She answered, "Everything is all right." But when she reached the man of God on the hill, she grabbed his feet. Gehazi came up to push her away, but the man of God said, "Leave her alone. She's in great distress. But Adonai has hidden from me what it is. He hasn't told me." Then she said, "Did I ask my Lord for a son? Didn't I say not to deceive me?" Then Elijah said to Gehazi, "Get dressed for action. Take my staff in your hand and be on your way. If you meet anyone, don't greet him. If anyone greets you, don't answer. And lay my staff on the child's face." The mother of the child said, "As Adonai lives, and as you live, I will not leave you." He got up and followed her. Gehazi went on ahead of them and laid the staff on the child's face, but there was no sound or sign of life. So he went back to Elijah and told him. The child didn't wake up.
When Elijah reached the house, there the child was, dead and laid on the bed. He went in, shut the door on the two of them, and prayed to Adonai. Then he got up on the bed and lay on top of the child, putting his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands. As he stretched himself out on the child, its flesh began to grow warm. Then he went down, walked around the house a while, went back up and stretched himself out on the child again. The child sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes. Then Elijah called Gehazi and said, "Call the Shunammite." So he called her, and when she came into him, he said, "Pick up your son." And she entered, fell at his feet, and prostrated herself on the floor. Then, she picked up her son and went out.
Then we have Luke. Luke 1, 26 through 38. And you find that on page 1288. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a city in the Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to a man named Joseph of the house of David. The virgin's name was Mary. Approaching her, the angel said, "Shalom, favored lady, Adonai is with you." She was deeply troubled by his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. The angel said to her, "Don't be afraid, Miriam, for you have found favor with God. Look, you will become pregnant. You will give birth to a son, and you are to name him Yeshua. He will be great. He will be called the Son of the Most High. Adonai, God, will give him the throne of his forefather David, and he will rule the house of Jacob forever. There will be no end to his kingdom." "How can this be?" asked Miriam of the angel, "since I am a virgin?" The angel answered her, "The Ruach HaKodesh will come over you. The power of El Elyon will cover you. Therefore the holy child born to you will be called the Son of God."
You have a relative, Elizabeth, who is an old woman, and everyone says she's barren. But she has conceived a son and is 6 months pregnant. For with God nothing is impossible. And Miriam said, "I am the servant of Adonai. May it happen to me as you have said." Then the angel left her.
Then we go to Luke 17, 28 through 37. Find that on page 1316. "Also at the time of the Son of Man, it will be just as it was at the time of Noah. People ate and drank, and men and women married right up until the day Noah entered the ark. Then the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise, as it was in the time of Lot, people ate and drank, bought and sold, planted and built. But the day Lot left Sodom, fire and sulfur rained down from heaven and destroyed them all. That's how it will be on the day of the Son of Man. On the day the Son of Man is revealed. On that day, if someone is on the roof and his belongings in his house, he must not go down to take them away. Similarly, if someone is in the field, he must not turn back. Remember Lot's wife. Whoever aims at preserving his own life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will stay alive. I tell you, on that night there will be 2 people in one bed. One will be taken and the other left behind. There will be 2 women grinding grain together. One will be taken and the other left behind." They asked him, "Where, Lord?" He answered, "Wherever there's a dead body, that's where the vultures gather." And then we go to Luke 24, 36 through 53. And that is on page 1328.
Is it Luke 24:33?
24:36.
24:36. Okay, thank you. They were still talking about it when there he was, standing among them. Startled and terrified, they thought they were seeing a ghost. But he said to them, "Why are you so upset? Why are these doubts welling up inside you? Look at my hands and my feet. It is I myself. Touch me and see. A ghost doesn't have flesh and bones, as you can see I do." As he said this, he showed them his hands and feet. While they were still unable to believe it for joy and stood there dumbfounded, he said to them, "Have you something here to eat?" They gave him a piece of broiled fish, which he took and ate in their presence.
Yeshua said to them, "This is what I meant when I was still with you and told you that everything written about me in the Torah of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms had to be fulfilled." Then he opened their minds so that they could understand the Tanakh, telling them, "Here's what it says. The Messiah is to suffer and to rise from the dead on the third day. And in his name, repentance leading to forgiveness of sins is to be proclaimed to people from all nations, starting with Jerusalem. You are to witness of these things. You are witnesses of these things, Now I'm sending forth upon you what my Father promised. So stay here in the city until you have been equipped with power from above."
He led them out toward Beit Anya. Then, raising his hands, he said a blessing over them. And he was blessing them. As he was blessing them, he withdrew from them and was carried up into heaven. They bowed in worship to him, and then returned to Jerusalem, overflowing with joy. They spent all their time in the temple courts praising God.
And we have 2 Peter 2, 4 through 11. Find that on page 1522. 2 Peter 2, 4. For God did not, their punishment, decreed long ago, is not idle. Their destruction is not asleep. For God did not spare the angels who sinned. On the contrary, he put them in gloomy dungeons lower than Sheol to be held for judgment. And he did not spare the ancient world. On the contrary, he preserved Noah, our herald of righteousness, with 7 others, and brought the flood upon a world of ungodly people. And he condemned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, reducing them to ashes and ruin, as a warning to those in the future who would live ungodly lives. But he rescued Lot, a righteous man, who was distressed by the debauchery of those unprincipled people. For the wicked deeds which that righteous man saw and heard as he lived among them tormented his righteous heart day after day. So the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials and how to hold the wicked until the day of judgment, while continuing to punish them, especially those who follow their old natures in lust for filth and who despise authority.
Presumptuous and self-willed, these false teachers do not tremble at insulting angelic beings, whereas angels, though stronger and more powerful, do not bring before the Lord an insulting charge against them. But these people, acting without thinking, like animals, without reason, born to be captured and destroyed, insult things about which they have no knowledge. When they are destroyed, their destruction will be total. They will be paid back harm as wages for the harm they are doing. Thank you, Father God, for this here Shabbat. We humble ourselves before you as we thank you for the peace that passes all understanding. As we have experienced it again and again, and our awareness of this peace that passes all understanding is hopefully with all of our brothers and sisters who you recognize as well. In the name of Yeshua we pray this. Amen.
Amen.